Dad, I need $500,000 for a luxury cruise and you're going to give it to me. When I refused, my daughter didn't argue. She sued me for $1 million. You heard that right? She demanded $500,000. I said no. So she took me to court demanding double. Does that sound insane? I raised her, paid for her college, her wedding, her car, every emergency expense. But apparently saying no just once turned me into the villain. They thought the grieving widower would break. They were wrong. What I uncovered after witnessing that performance in court didn't just save me, it exposed a betrayal so dark I never imagined it was possible. Hello everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm curious, how did you discover this story? Was it recommended, or did you search for something specific? Please share in the comments. I read every single one. A brief reminder. This account includes fictional components designed for entertainment and reflection. Resemblances to real individuals or locations are unintentional, but the principles I'm presenting offer meaningful guidance you can apply. I never thought I'd say no to my daughter. For 67 years, I believed love meant giving everything. I was wrong. My name is Howard Fletcher. I'm 69 now, and almost 2 years ago, everything changed. For 4 decades, I worked as a cardiac surgeon making split-second decisions between life and death, but nothing prepared me for what my daughter would do to me. When I retired at 65, I had $2.8 million in savings and a paid-off house worth $1.2 million. $4 million total. Not a fortune, but enough for 20 or 30 more years. Enough to feel secure. Caroline, my wife, had been gone 13 years by then. Pancreatic cancer took her quickly. In her final weeks, she whispered something I didn't understand at the time. Oh, Howard, you've always been too soft with Allison. Love her, but teach her about boundaries. Promise me. I promised, though. I didn't know what she meant. Allison had always been a good daughter. Attentive, caring, visiting regularly with the grandkids. I started understanding 6 months after retirement, when patterns became impossible to ignore. College tuition, $150,000. Her wedding, $100,000. A car, $45,000. Emergencies over the years, $80,000 more. I added it up, one sleepless night, $375,000. I told myself Caroline would have wanted me to help. The dinner invitation came on a Tuesday in late January. Allison's voice was bright and warm. Dad, come over this weekend. I'll make that pot roast you love. I arrived Saturday evening. Allison greeted me with a hug that felt too tight, lasted too long. I should have known something was coming. Dinner was perfect. We talked about the kids, about Easton's work as a sales manager, about my garden. After Easton carried the sleepy children upstairs, Allison poured coffee and sat down with a serious expression. Dad, there's something important I need to talk to you about. My stomach tightened. Easton wouldn't meet my eyes. I've been thinking about myself lately. Allison began softly. About who I am, what I need. Ever since Mom died, I've given everything to everyone else. I've lost myself. She took my hand. I found this incredible opportunity. A luxury cruise 3 months long through the Mediterranean and Greek islands. It's not just vacation. It's a healing retreat. Yoga, meditation, wellness workshops. Time to process my grief, to find myself again. Something cold settled in my chest. 3 months is a long time. What about Justin and Chloe? Easton will be here. My mom friends can help. The kids will be fine. She squeezed tighter. Dad, I need this. I glanced at Easton. His jaw was tight. This had already been argued about. Allison, I understand you're overwhelmed. But 3 months away from your children, the cost is $500,000. The words hung in the air. I must have misheard. I'm sorry, what? $500,000. All inclusive. Dad, you have the money. You're sitting on $4 million. This is barely an eighth of that. My mind spun. How did she know my finances? We'd never discussed specific numbers. But beneath that shock was cold math. 500,000 was nearly 20% of my liquid savings. That money had to last 30 more years. Allison, I love you, but I can't give you $500,000. Can't or won't. Her voice had an edge now. Stick both. That money is my retirement. It has to last the rest of my life. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for what I've earned. Do you know what I gave up when Mom got sick? I was 20 and I came home every weekend to help you. And I paid for your entire education, I said quietly. $150,000. She waved dismissively. That's what parents do. Your wedding, $100,000, the car, the emergencies, $375,000, Allison. And I'm grateful, but that doesn't change what I need now. She leaned forward. Don't you want me to be happy? It was a trap. I thought about Caroline's warning, about boundaries. See, happiness doesn't cost $500,000. And leaving your family for 3 months while you sail the Mediterranean alone, that's not healing. That's running away. You don't understand. You've never understood what it's like to be the one everyone depends on. I was a surgeon for 40 years. I understand responsibility. Mara, that's different. You got paid, you got respect. I get exhausted children and a father who won't help when I finally ask for something real. I felt something break open inside me. Carolyn's voice echoed boundaries. Howard, this isn't about how much I value you. 500,000 is too much for something so selfish. You have a family who needs you. And I need that money for medical expenses, for care, if I get sick, for my independence. I can't be reckless with it, even for you. The silence was terrible. I watched my daughter's face and saw something shift. The warmth drained away. Her eyes fixed on me with cold intensity. When I see, she said softly, after everything I've done, after caring for you when Mom was dying, after putting my life on hold, this is how you repay me. Allison, no. She stood abruptly. I asked for one thing, and you decided your precious retirement fund was worth more than your daughter's mental health. That's not fair. Chin fair. She laughed without humor. You want to talk about fair? Her face held something I'd never seen before. Not in 30 years. This was someone I didn't recognize wearing my daughter's face but looking at me with eyes full of calculation and rage. She opened her mouth to speak, and I knew with surgical certainty that whatever came next would change everything forever. Before I tell you what she said that night, let me take you back to 2010 when my world collapsed and I believed my daughter would heal it all. Caroline died on a Tuesday in November. The hospital room smelled like disinfectant and failure. I had seen death countless times in my career, but nothing prepares you for watching your own wife slip away. She was 57. We'd had 35 years together. It wasn't enough. Allison was 20, then home from college for what we all knew would be the last time. She held her mother's other hand while I held mine, the three of us connected in that terrible vigil. Howard. Caroline's voice was barely a whisper. I leaned closer. Promise me you'll take care of our girl. Always, I said. Of course, always. But Howard, don't let her take you for granted. I see it sometimes, the way she asks, the way she expects. Love her, teach her, but don't let her mistake your generosity for weakness. Boundaries, my love. She needs to learn about boundaries. I nodded, but I didn't understand. Allison was our only child, sitting right there with tears streaming down her face. How could Caroline be worried about boundaries at a time like this? I thought it was the morphine talking. I promised anyway, because you promise your dying wife whatever she asks. She passed 3 hours later. Allison sobbed into my chest, and I held her while my world shattered. My daughter felt like the only solid thing left. The weeks after the funeral blurred into gray fog. I moved through the house like a ghost, unable to sleep in our bed, unable to do much except exist. Friends came by with casseroles and condolences, but their presence exhausted me. Allison didn't let me be alone. 3 days after we buried her mother, she showed up with 2 suitcases and moved into her old bedroom. "You shouldn't be alone right now, Dad," she said. "I'm taking a semester off. You need me here." I was too numb to argue, maybe too grateful. She cooked meals I barely touched. She answered phone calls I couldn't bear to take. She sat with me while I stared at the television without seeing anything. Looking back, I wonder how much was genuine care and how much was performance. At the time, I saw only devotion. She stayed 3 months. By February, I'd resurfaced enough to function. I started going through Caroline's things, forced myself to sleep in our bedroom again. "Dad, I think you're going to be okay," Allison said one evening. "I'm so glad. But I need to talk to you about something." "What is it, sweetheart?" "I want to go back to school. Finish my degree. I've only got 2 years left and Mom would want me to finish." She reached across the table. "But the tuition, my financial aid only covers part of it. I don't have the money for the rest." I didn't hesitate. "What father would? How much do you need?" "For both years, about 75,000. She said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. It was a lot. But I had the money, and I had so little else to give her now that her mother was gone. "I'll take care of it. All of it." Her smile was radiant. She hugged me, and for the first time since Caroline died, I felt something close to warmth. "Thank you, Dad. I promise I'll make you proud." 75,000 became 150,000 by the time she graduated in 2015, once I factored in living expenses and what she called necessary costs. I told myself it was an investment. That's what you do for your children. The asking didn't stop with graduation. By 2017, Allison had met Easton. He worked in sales, seemed solid. They dated 6 months before he proposed. I liked him, steady, respectful. The wedding was supposed to be small, but plans expanded. The venue, the flowers, the celebrity photographer, the dress, the destination rehearsal dinner. "Dad, this is my one wedding," Allison said. "The day Mom and I used to talk about, please, I can't do this without you." She knew exactly what to say, invoking Caroline, making it about her mother's dreams. I wrote a check for $100,000 and watched my daughter marry Easton on a perfect September afternoon. Justin was born in 2016, Chloe in 2018. My grandchildren brought light back into my dark world. Justin had Caroline's eyes, Chloe had her laugh. When Allison brought them to visit, I felt connected to something larger than my grief. But the visits always came with requests. Medical bills, house repairs, daycare costs. In 2017, it was a car, not just any car, but a BMW for safety. $45,000. Then came emergencies over the years, tax bills, medical procedures, a burst pipe. 80,000 total spread across so many incidents, I lost track. Each time Allison had a perfectly reasonable explanation. Each time I helped. What else was I supposed to do? I started noticing things. Allison's expensive clothes, her designer purse, their lovely house that seemed a stretch on their combined $150,000 annual income. The visits themselves had become less frequent, once every month or two. But when they came, there was usually a reason beyond just seeing me. A favor to ask, money to borrow, though it was never framed that way. I started to wonder if I'd been too generous, if I'd created an expectation that I would always say yes. Caroline's warning echoed in my memory late at night. Boundaries. Had I taught Allison about boundaries? Or had I taught her that Dad's wallet was always open? I pushed the thoughts away. She was my daughter. She'd taken care of me when Caroline died. Family wasn't supposed to keep score, but in quiet moments, I did the math anyway. $375,000 over 13 years, more than $350,000. It was staggering when I let myself see it clearly. Looking back now, I can see the pattern. Every visit had a price tag attached, but I was blind to it then. Maybe it was easier to believe I was helping than to admit I was being used. So when she sat across from me that evening and asked for $500,000 to sail around the Mediterranean by herself, leaving her husband and babies behind, something inside me finally broke. Not from anger, from clarity. This wasn't about healing or self-discovery. This was about money, about what she'd come to expect from me, about a pattern I'd enabled for over a decade. I said no. And that's when the mask came off. What came out of my daughter's mouth next changed everything. Words so venomous I barely recognized the voice as hers. The silence after my refusal stretched between us like a chasm. Allison stood slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. When I looked up at her face, the woman staring back was someone I'd never seen before. All warmth had drained from her eyes, replaced by something cold and calculating. "Might Allison please try to understand?" "Don't." The word came out like a knife. "Don't say another word." Easton reached for her hand, but she pulled away. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air thicker. My heart pounded against my ribs. She took a breath, and when she spoke again, her voice was perfectly controlled. Measured. That somehow made it worse. "Now I understand why Mom died so young." Each word landed like a blow. She must have suffocated living next to someone as stingy, cold, and small as you. The world tilted. I gripped the table, my vision blurring. Caroline. She was bringing Caroline into this, making her death about money, about my refusal. "Allison," my voice broke. She wasn't finished. "You don't love anyone. You only love the feeling of controlling your numbers. Your existence is a prison sentence for everyone around you." I couldn't breathe. The words kept coming, kept cutting. My daughter, my little girl who used to tell me everything would be okay after her mother died, this couldn't be her. She leaned forward, placing both hands on the table, her face inches from mine. "I'd rather be a nobody wandering on some cruise ship than carry the filthy name of a selfish man like you." The silence that followed was deafening. I felt tears running down my face, hot and shameful. My mind was spinning. Had Caroline felt trapped? Had I suffocated her without knowing it? All those years working long hours, building our savings, being responsible, had she resented me for it? "Allison, honey, you don't mean that." Easton's voice cut through the fog. He stood moving toward her. "You're upset. You're saying things you don't mean." She whirled on him. "Don't you dare defend him. He chose money over his own daughter." "That's not what he did," Easton said, but his voice lacked conviction. He glanced at me, then away quickly. I could see the doubt in his face. $500,000. Allison continued, her voice rising. "That's what my mental health is worth to him. That's what 13 years of being there for him, of sacrificing my 20s, is worth." "I never asked you to sacrifice anything," I whispered. "I never asked you to put your life on hold." "You didn't have to ask. That's what daughters do, right? We give and give and give, and fathers take and take and take, and then when we finally need something, we're told we're selfish. 3 months alone on a cruise while your children, sure, my children will be fine. Easton can handle them. Everyone keeps telling me to take care of myself, but when I actually try to do it, I'm the bad guy." I looked at Easton. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched. He knew this wasn't right, but he wasn't going to say it. "Please," I said, my voice barely audible. "Can we talk about this tomorrow, when everyone's calmer, There's nothing to talk about. Allison grabbed her purse. We're done here. She headed for the door. I stood my legs unsteady. Allison, wait. Please don't leave like this. She stopped her hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I thought she might turn around. Instead, she looked at me over her shoulder, and her eyes were ice. You're going to regret this, she said quietly. You're going to find out what it's like to lose the only family you have left. The door closed behind her, not a slam, just a soft, final click that somehow felt worse. Easton stood frozen. He ran his hand through his hair, looking everywhere except at me. Dad, I'm sorry. She'll cool down. She just needs time. I'll talk to her. Easton! I should go. The kids. He gestured vaguely toward the stairs. And Allison shouldn't drive when she's this upset. He left. The house fell silent. I stood there surrounded by the remnants of dinner. The pot roast she'd made specially for me sat congealing on the stove. I sank back into my chair. The words kept playing in my head. Suffocated. Prison sentence. Filthy name. And the worst. I understand why Mom died so young. I called my old friend Walter, told him everything. She's angry, he said. People say terrible things when they're angry. Give her a few days. She'll come around. You didn't hear her. That wasn't anger. That was hatred. She doesn't hate you. She's your daughter. She loves you. I wanted to believe him. But something in my gut told me Walter was wrong. This wasn't a fight that would resolve itself with time. I didn't hear from Allison the next day, or the day after that. I called twice, both went to voicemail. I texted. No response. On the third day, Easton finally replied, She needs space, give her time. I gave her space. Days turned into a week. 1 week became 2. Easton's texts were brief. Still processing. Not ready to talk. She's really hurt. I tried to focus on other things. Worked in the garden. Went through the motions of living while feeling like I was drowning. Every night I picked up the phone to call. Every night I put it back down. Caroline's face kept appearing in my dreams. Sometimes healthy and laughing. Sometimes in that hospital bed, boundaries Howard. Other times she looked at me with disappointment, like maybe Allison had been right. 2 weeks after that dinner, I stood at my mailbox on a Tuesday afternoon. Bills, advertisements, and a certified letter that required my signature. My hands shook as I signed for it. The return address was from a law firm I didn't recognize. As I walked back up my driveway, envelope in hand, I knew with absolute certainty that the silence hadn't been about space or processing. The silence had been preparation. 2 weeks of silence can feel like a lifetime when the child you brought into this world refuses to speak to you. I tried to reach out. Every call went to voicemail. Every text showed read, but received no reply. What I didn't know was that while I was grieving, she was plotting. The first day after she walked out, I waited. But by evening, the weight of her terrible words pressed down on my chest. I called. It rang twice, then went silent. Voicemail. Sweetheart, it's Dad. Can we please talk? I love you. No response. By day 3, I texted, I miss Justin and Chloe. Can I at least see them? The message showed, delivered then read. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. My heart raced, but nothing came through. I called again that afternoon. Straight to voicemail. She'd blocked me. On day 5, I drove to their house. Their BMW sat in the driveway, the car I'd bought them. I could see lights on inside, movement through the curtains. I rang the doorbell. Easton opened the door, a crack, guilt and pity on his face. Dad, hi. This isn't a good time. I just want to talk to her. 5 minutes, please. He glanced over his shoulder, then stepped outside. She's not ready. You have to give her more time. Can I at least see the kids? She said no visitors right now. I'm sorry. Look, I'll talk to her, okay? But you showing up like this isn't helping. I drove home in silence, my vision blurring with tears. What I didn't know was what Allison had been doing during those 2 weeks. While I sat alone wondering if I'd lost my daughter forever, she was busy. She'd found a lawyer, Alexander Hunt, 34 years old, ambitious, hungry for high-profile cases. She walked into his office with tears in her eyes and a story already polished to perfection. "My father promised me money," she told him. "He said he'd take care of me after everything I did for him, and now he's refusing. I have evidence." She showed him photos, pictures of her at my house over the years. Timestamps carefully edited to make it look like she'd been there far more often than she actually had. One in particular, me signing documents at my kitchen table looking slightly confused, had been taken months earlier when she'd slipped something into my evening tea. Just enough to make me drowsy, unfocused. Just enough to photograph. She showed him emails, exchanges we'd supposedly had about her healing journey and my commitment to support her mental health. Emails I'd never written. She was good with computers, always had been. And then there was the letter. A promise letter, she called it, signed with my signature or close enough. She'd forged it using old documents practiced until she got it right. It promised her $500,000 for personal healing and growth after years of sacrifice. Alexander Hunt looked at the evidence and saw dollar signs. He saw a daughter wronged by a wealthy, cold-hearted father. He didn't see the manipulation. Or maybe he did, and he didn't care. She did something else during those 2 weeks. She seduced him not physically at first, but emotionally. Told him about her terrible childhood, her demanding father, her dead mother. Made herself vulnerable, irresistible. By the second week, Alexander Hunt wasn't just her lawyer. He was her ally, her weapon. She drafted social media posts she hadn't yet published, practiced crying in front of her phone camera, built a narrative of a devoted daughter destroyed by her father's greed. All she needed was the right moment to go public. But I knew none of this. I only knew the silence, the waiting, the terrible gnawing fear that my attempt to teach boundaries had cost me my family. A week in Easton finally texted, "She'll come around. She's just really hurt right now." I stared at those words for an hour. Hurt. Yes, I'd hurt her by saying no. But what about the things she'd said to me about Caroline? Did that hurt count for nothing? I called Walter that night. "Still no word?" he asked when he heard my tone. "Nothing. Walter, maybe I should just apologize. Give her the money. Get my family back." But Howard, his voice was firm. "You gave her $375,000 over the years. You don't owe her another $500,000. This isn't about money. This is about control." She said I suffocated Caroline. What if she's right? Stop. Caroline loved you. She was happy. Don't let Allison rewrite history because you won't give her what she wants. But even Walter's words couldn't quiet the doubt. I found myself looking through old photo albums late at night. Pictures of Caroline and me on our honeymoon at Allison's graduation family vacations. In every photo, Caroline was smiling, laughing, her hand in mine. Had she been pretending? Had she really felt trapped? I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The house felt enormous and empty. 2 weeks after that dinner, I wrote a letter. Handwritten, to Allison. I love you more than words can express. What you said hurt me deeply, but I forgive you. I will always be your father. Can we please talk, love, Dad? I drove to their house and left it in the mailbox. Didn't ring the bell. Just left the letter and drove away. No response came. By day 16, I'd started to accept that maybe this was permanent. Maybe saying no to $500,000 meant saying goodbye forever. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Easton. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dad, I need to tell you something. Allison's been meeting with a lawyer, Alexander Hunt. I heard her on the phone with him yesterday talking about documentation about building a case. When I asked her what was going on, she told me to stay out of it. Said you'd understand soon enough. My chest tightened. A lawyer, documentation, a case. Another text came through. I don't know what she's planning. She won't tell me the details. But Dad, the way she's acting, it's like she's preparing for war. I'm scared. Whatever this is, I think it's bigger than just being angry. I sat at my kitchen table, phone in my trembling hands, staring at those words. A lawyer, a case, war. The silence hadn't been about healing or processing. The silence had been preparation. And whatever Allison was preparing, I had the sinking certainty it was going to destroy me. I'd performed thousands of surgeries in my career, held beating hearts in my hands, made split-second decisions between life and death. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment I opened that envelope and saw that my own daughter was suing me for $1 million. 8 weeks had passed since that terrible dinner. 8 weeks of silence, of failed attempts to reach her, of Easton's increasingly worried texts. Now I understood why. While I'd been grieving, she'd been building a weapon. The certified mail arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in late March. The return address, Hutchins & Associates Litigation Attorneys. I stood at my mailbox for a full minute before my hands stopped shaking enough to sign for it. Inside, I made coffee I wouldn't drink and sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd eaten countless meals with Caroline, where Allison had done homework as a child, where I'd written checks for her college tuition, her wedding, her car. I opened the envelope. The first page hit me like a physical blow. Allison Fletcher, plaintiff, versus Howard Fletcher, defendant. Civil complaint for breach of promise, emotional distress, and unjust enrichment. Amount sought $1 million. My vision blurred. My daughter, my only child, was suing me for $1 million. Count 1, promissory estoppel. $500,000. Defendant promised to provide plaintiff with funds for a healing journey following years of caregiving sacrifice. Plaintiff relied on this promise in good faith. I'd never made that promise. But as I flipped through the exhibits, I saw the evidence. A letter supposedly written by me, promising Allison $500,000 for personal healing and growth after years of devoted sacrifice. The signature looked almost exactly like mine, but I'd never written those words. She'd forged it. Count 2, reimbursement for caregiving services, $375,000. Plaintiff provided full-time caregiving services to defendant for 10 years, following the death of plaintiff's mother. Defendant is unjustly enriched by these services. 10 years. Full-time caregiving. The accusations were so outrageous, I would have laughed if I hadn't been horrified. She'd visited occasionally, stayed 3 months after Caroline died. But full-time caregiving, I'd given her $375,000 over the years. Now she wanted it back, framed as wages I owed her. Count 3. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. $125,000. Defendant's sudden and cruel withdrawal of promised support caused plaintiff severe psychological trauma. Setting a boundary apparently constituted abuse. The exhibits were damning. Emails I supposedly sent about my commitment to support her healing journey. The formatting was slightly off. The phrasing wasn't quite mine. She'd faked them, then the photos. Pictures of me looking confused or disoriented. In one, I appeared to be signing documents while looking vaguely out of it. I stared at that photo. 6 months ago, she'd made me tea one evening. I'd felt drowsy afterward, oddly fuzzy. What if she'd slipped something into my drink? Just enough to make me confused while she posed me for photographs. This wasn't just a lawsuit. This was a conspiracy. A calculated plan to destroy me. My phone buzzed. A notification. Then another. Within seconds, my phone was vibrating continuously. I'd been tagged in a social media post. A video going viral. I clicked on it with dread. Allison's face filled my screen, sitting on the floor crying. vulnerable, heartbroken. Perfect performance. I need to share something painful, she said, her voice trembling. For 10 years, I've cared for my aging father after my mother died from cancer. I gave up my dreams, my career opportunities. I put my life on hold because that's what family does. The video cut to photos. Allison in my kitchen smiling as she cooked. Allison with Justin and Chloe at my house. Family moments carefully curated. Timestamps manipulated. He promised me he'd always take care of me the way I took care of him. Her voice broke. When I finally asked for help just once after everything I'd sacrificed, he turned his back. He said I was selfish for even asking. She covered her face, sobbing. I lost my mother. Now I've lost my father too. To his greed. To his coldness. The video ended. 300,000 followers. 40,000 likes already. The comments flooded with support and rage. You're so strong for sharing this. He's a monster. Sue him for everything. What kind of father does this? Hope karma destroys him. Then I saw it. Someone had posted my address, my phone number. Within minutes, the information spread through the comments like wildfire. My phone rang. Unknown number. Without thinking, I answered. You should be ashamed of yourself, you selfish bastard. A stranger's voice screaming. Your daughter sacrificed everything. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. It kept ringing. Text messages flooded in. Strangers, hundreds of them. You don't deserve to be called a father. I hope you die alone. Your daughter is a saint and you're trash. 47 voicemails in 3 hours. My email inbox exploded. Someone threw eggs at my front door. A local news van pulled up across the street. I closed all the curtains, unplugged the landline, put my phone on silent, sat in my dark living room trying to understand how my life had turned into this nightmare. A knock at the door. Howard, it's Walter. Let me in. I opened the door. Walter took one look at my face and stepped inside quickly. I saw the video, he said. Half the city has seen it. Howard, this is bad. You need a lawyer. A good one. She's suing me. $1 million. She forged documents, faked emails. Walter, she drugged me to take photographs. Jesus Christ. He ran his hand through his hair. Do you know any lawyers? Vincent Brennan. We'd worked together on medical legal cases 20 years ago. He'd defended doctors in malpractice suits. He was tough, smart, one of the few people in the legal world I trusted. I found his card and called. He answered on the second ring. Vincent, it's Howard Fletcher. I need help. My daughter is suing me. A pause. Howard. Yes, I heard. I saw that video. Come to my office tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. Bring everything. Thank you. So don't thank me yet. From what I'm seeing online, this is going to be a war. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with the lawsuit spread out, reading it over and over, trying to understand how the daughter I'd loved for 30 years could do this to me. Caroline's face kept appearing in my mind. Boundaries, Howard. She needs to learn about boundaries. I'd set a boundary. And my daughter had responded by trying to destroy me. Vincent's office smelled like old books and leather. It was the first place I'd felt safe in days. But sitting across from him, spreading out the lawsuit documents on his mahogany desk, I realized that safety was temporary. The real battle was just beginning. Vincent Brennan looked exactly as I remembered. 58 years old, salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd defended doctors in malpractice cases for 30 years. We'd worked together on medical legal consultations, and professional respect had turned into genuine friendship. He shook my hand warmly. Howard, I'm sorry it's come to this. Tell me everything. I did. Started with that dinner in late January. Allison's request for $500,000, my refusal. The toxic words she'd said, the 2 months of silence, the viral video, the lawsuit. Vincent listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When I finished, he picked up the lawsuit and began reading carefully. "Let me see the alleged evidence," he said. I showed him the promise letter with my signature, or something close to it, pledging $500,000 for Allison's healing journey. Vincent. I never wrote this. I've never seen this letter before in my life. He held it up to the light, examined the signature. The forgery is sophisticated. Did Allison have access to documents you'd signed? She's been in my house hundreds of times. She could have taken anything. He moved to the emails. Supposed conversations about my commitment to support her personal growth and sacrifice recognition. I don't remember these conversations. The wording isn't mine. Look at this phrase, healing journey. I've never used that expression. Metadata can be manipulated, Vincent said. We'll need forensic analysis. What about these photos? I explained the tea incident 6 months ago. How I'd felt drowsy afterward, fuzzy. What if she put something in my drink? Vincent's expression darkened. That would be elder endangerment. A criminal offense. But proving it is difficult without a talk screen at the time. He leaned back in his chair. Let me explain what we're up against. Alexander Hunt is her attorney. I know him. Young Ambitious specializes in sympathetic plaintiffs against wealthy defendants. A devoted daughter rejected by her aging father, that's his bread and butter. My stomach turned. So she picked him specifically, or he picked her when he saw the potential. Vincent pulled out a legal pad. Let's break down the 3 counts. Promissory estoppel, she claims you made a promise, she relied on it. With these forged documents, it looks convincing. Caregiving reimbursement, she's trying to turn your relationship into a transaction. And emotional distress, the easiest to claim but hardest to quantify. However, she's building public sympathy through social media. That video has millions of views now. She's poisoning the jury pool. I felt sick. So what do? We fight back with evidence. First, forensic document analysis proved those documents are fake. Second, establish a clear timeline of Allison's actual involvement in your life. Third, review. Your financial records show the pattern of giving $375,000 over the years. Fourth, investigate her current situation. Why does she need $500,000? What's the real motive? I don't want to hurt her, I said quietly. She's still my daughter. He looked at me with sympathy and steel. Howard, she's already trying to hurt you. We're not attacking her. We're defending the truth. What if the truth destroys her? What if her lies destroy you first? I thought about Caroline, about boundaries. You're right. What do we do next? Vincent called Diane Porter, a private investigator. Former police detective now specializing in civil cases. By late afternoon, she arrived, sharp eyes, professional demeanor. Vincent briefed her on the case. We need to know what she's really doing, her financial situation, who she's involved with, why she needs $500,000 badly enough to sue her father. Diane nodded. Surveillance, financial background check, deep dive into social media. If there's something to find, I'll find it. I shifted uncomfortably. This feels wrong, like I'm spying on my own daughter. Diane turned to me, her expression kind but firm. Mr. Fletcher, she's been staging photos of you for months. She's collected evidence without your knowledge. We're not invading her privacy out of malice. We're looking for the truth. Sometimes the truth is the only defense we have. After Diane left, Vincent and I mapped out our defense strategy. He filed an answer to the complaint, denying every allegation. Discovery worked both ways. Allison would have to produce her financial records too. They'll request your documents as well, Vincent warned. Everything will be scrutinized. I have nothing to hide. Depositions were scheduled for 3 weeks out. Vincent explained the process, how to answer truthfully without volunteering information. Every word matters. We'll prep extensively. By the time I left, my head was spinning. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. This was litigation. $1 million. My reputation. My phone rang as I drove home. Easton's name on the screen. Dad, I just found out about the lawsuit. $1 million. This is serious. It's very serious, Easton. Can you two settle this? Just talk. I tried to talk for 2 months. She sued me instead. I'm willing to talk any time, but not with $1 million threat hanging over my head. She's adamant you promised her that money. She showed me the letter you signed. That letter is fake, Easton. I never wrote it. I never signed it. Silence stretched. I don't know what to believe anymore. Believe the man who's never lied to you. I love Allison, but I will not be extorted. If she wants a real conversation, I'm here. But if she insists on this lawsuit, I'll defend myself. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a long time. Easton was caught in an impossible situation. 2 days later, Vincent called. His voice was tight with something I couldn't quite read. Howard, the forensic report came back about that promise letter. You need to hear this. 4 days after hiring Vincent and Diane, the forensic report arrived. 3 pages that proved my daughter hadn't simply been mistaken. She had deliberately fabricated evidence. In legal terms, that was fraud. In a father's heart, it was something far worse. Vincent called that morning asking me to come to his office immediately. When I arrived, he had his laptop set up for a video conference. On the screen was Dr. Patricia Stone, a forensic document examiner. Gentlemen, I've conducted a comprehensive analysis of the documents provided. She began, displaying 2 images side by side, the signature from Allison's letter and my actual signature from bank documents. While superficially similar, there are significant discrepancies. The pressure points are wrong. The stroke patterns differ. Most tellingly, this signature from the promise letter matches almost exactly with a signature from your refinancing paperwork from 6 months prior. I leaned closer. She was right. The signatures were nearly identical. Too identical. This is what we call a traced signature. The forger likely used a lightbox or digital scanning method to copy your authentic signature from one document onto this fabricated letter. It's sophisticated work, but detectable under forensic analysis. My hands gripped the chair arms. She traced my signature like a professional forger. Precisely. This wasn't casual. This required planning access to your documents and technical capability. Vincent made notes. What about the emails? The email exchanges show multiple red flags. The metadata has been manipulated. Several show impossible timestamps, dates when Mr. Fletcher's email account was accessed from an IP address in Chicago. I straightened. I was at a cardiology conference in Chicago last May. Exactly. Someone accessed your account remotely during that time. We believe your daughter gained access to your email password and used it to create fake conversations. Some emails appear to be heavily edited versions of real exchanges. Others were created entirely from scratch. The final exhibit was the photographs showing me looking confused. These images display classic signs of digital manipulation. The lighting doesn't match between foreground and background. The shadows are inconsistent. These are composite images, multiple photos stitched together to create a false narrative. Additionally, the creation dates post-date the alleged events by several months. They were edited and saved repeatedly. This is staged evidence, gentlemen. In your professional opinion, Vincent asked, were these documents deliberately fabricated? We are without question. This wasn't accidental. This was calculated fraud designed to create false evidence for litigation. After the call ended, I sat in silence. She didn't just exaggerate Vincent. She forged documents. She planned this for months. This is very good for our case, Howard. It proves intentional fraud. It destroys her credibility. Good, my voice cracked. My daughter is a criminal. How is that good? Vincent's expression softened. I'm sorry, you're right. This is awful. But it means we can fight this, and we will win. What happens to her if we prove the forgery in court? She could face criminal charges beyond this civil case. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. But Howard, she brought this on herself. Later that afternoon, Diane called requesting an urgent meeting. She arrived with a tablet full of photographs. I've been watching her for 3 weeks. Diane began spreading photos across the conference table. There are serious inconsistencies between what she claims publicly and how she's actually living. She pointed to photos of Allison at upscale restaurants with expensive handbags. Her social media portrays a struggling mother. But I've documented at least $15,000 in luxury spending in 3 weeks. Vincent examined the photos. Where's the money coming from? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Easton's salary is decent. Hers is moderate, but this lifestyle exceeds their reported income. Diane pulled up more photos. Second issue, she's barely home. The kids are with a babysitter or Easton most days. Allison's often gone from late morning until evening. She claims to be a full-time mother, Vincent noted. And a full-time caregiver to her father, Diane added, looking at me. But Mr. Fletcher, she hasn't visited your house once in the 3 weeks I've been conducting surveillance. Not once. The statement hit harder than it should have. There's something else. Diane pulled up a photo of Allison entering a downtown hotel dressed professionally alone. This was taken on a Tuesday afternoon. She went in at noon, came out at 2:15. Hotel staff mentioned she's been there before. Another photo showed Allison at a cafe, leaning towards someone across the table, the angle preventing a clear view. The body language here is intimate, more than friendly, more than professional. Vincent studied the image. Can you identify who she's meeting? Not yet, but I'm working on it. After Diane left, Vincent walked me through deposition strategy. You'll be under oath. Alexander Hunt will try to paint you as cold, miserly. You need to stay calm. Answer truthfully. Don't volunteer information. We practiced simple questions with simple answers. Did you promise your daughter $500,000? No. Did you write this letter? No. That evening alone in my house, I pulled out old photo albums. Something I'd avoided since all this started. There she was, at 5 years old, holding up a drawing of our family. Her college graduation, beaming as she hugged me. Underneath, she'd written, "To the best dad in the world. Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this without you. Love always, Allison." My hands shook. Tears blurred my vision. Had it all been performance? Or had something changed her into someone who could forge documents and fabricate evidence against her own father? Caroline's warning echoed. She'd seen something I'd missed. I put the photo back and closed the album. Tomorrow I'd have to be strong, but tonight I let myself grieve for the daughter I'd believed existed. The depositions were scheduled for 2 weeks out. I kept thinking that seeing Allison face to face would give me answers, but I was wrong. What I witnessed was a performance so convincing that even I almost believed her lies. 2 weeks after the forensic report, we sat in a sterile conference room for depositions. A deposition isn't a trial, but it felt like one, especially when the person sitting across from you, swearing to tell the whole truth, is your own daughter preparing to lie under oath. The conference room was at a neutral law office downtown. Long table court reporter with her stenography machine video camera recording everything. Vincent and I arrived early. He reviewed his questions one last time. The door opened. Alexander Hunt entered first, confident stride, expensive suit. Then Allison. She wore a simple dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back. Our eyes met for the first time in months. I expected anger, defiance. Instead, she looked away quickly, dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Already performing for the camera, the court reporter administered the oath. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." Allison's voice was soft, vulnerable. The voice of a victim. Alexander began with gentle leading questions. "Ms. Fletcher, can you describe your relationship with your father? He was everything to me. After my mother died, we only had each other. I devoted myself to caring for him." Her voice broke slightly. Perfect timing. "I put my life on hold. My career, my dreams. I just wanted to make sure he wasn't alone. Can you describe the care you provided?" "I visited him 3-4 times a week, sometimes more. I cooked for him, helped with his medications, made sure he had company. He was struggling with grief." My jaw clenched. 3 to 4 times a week, she'd visited once a month at most after that first 3 months. Vincent's hand touched my arm lightly. A warning. "Stay calm." "Did your father make any promises about supporting you?" "Yes." Allison's eyes welled with tears. "Many times he said he'd always take care of me, that I'd never have to worry. That after everything I'd done for him, he'd make sure I was okay." Alexander pulled out the forged promise letter. "Can you identify this? That's a letter my father wrote me 2 years ago." She read aloud, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Allison, you've sacrificed so much for me. I promise to support you in whatever you need to heal and grow. Love, Dad." I stared at that letter, at my supposed signature, at words I'd never written. The forensic report sat in Vincent's folder, proving it was fake, but watching her hold it, crying over it, even I felt a flicker of doubt. "Tell me about the cruise request," Alexander prompted. I was exhausted. 10 years of caring for my father, plus raising 2 small children. My marriage was strained. I was struggling mentally, emotionally. She paused. "I told my father I needed time to heal. Just 3 months away to reset myself. I'd found this therapeutic cruise program, yoga meditation counseling. Therapeutic cruise program. It had been a luxury vacation. But the way she framed it now, it sounded like medical treatment. I asked if he could help financially. He has over $4 million in assets. After everything I'd done, I thought he'd understand. I thought he'd want me to be healthy." What was his response? Her voice dropped hollow with hurt. "He said no. Cold. Final. Like I was asking for something unreasonable. Then he said I was selfish for wanting to abandon my children." Her voice broke again. My own father, calling me selfish, when I'd given him 10 years of my life. Lie. I'd explained my reasoning. I'd said the request was selfish, not that she was, but the distinction wouldn't matter to a jury. Alexander asked a few more questions, then turned to Vincent. "Your witness." Vincent stood slowly, buttoned his suit jacket. When he spoke, his voice was conversational, almost friendly. "Ms. Fletcher, you testified that you visited your father 3 to 4 times per week for 10 years. Is that correct?" "Yes." "You live 45 minutes away by car, correct? And you have 2 small children, ages 4 and 2, and you work full-time as an event planner, approximately 40 hours per week." "Yes." Vincent pulled out a calculator, made a show of doing math. "So over 10 years, visiting 3 times per week minimum, that's approximately 1,560 visits, each requiring 90 minutes of drive time alone." "Correct." Allison hesitated. I made it work. Remarkable dedication, especially while managing a full-time career and raising 2 young children. We'll return to that timeline later." He changed topics. This promise letter. When did your father give it to you? 2 years ago, October. Do you have the original document? A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. I know. I only have a copy. And where is the original? Somewhere in the house, I think. I'm not sure exactly. You're suing your father for $1 million based partly on this letter, but you can't produce the original. Objection, Alexander cut in. Argumentative. I'll rephrase. Ms. Fletcher will be requesting the original document in discovery. You'll provide it, correct? If I can find it, yes, Vincent made a note. This cruise was for 3 months traveling alone, leaving your husband and 2 small children behind. Correct? Yes, but it was for my mental health. I'm just confirming the facts. Now you claim you suffered severe emotional distress when your father refused. Yet within days you consulted with Mr. Hunt and filed a lawsuit seeking $1 million. That's quite rapid action for someone experiencing severe psychological trauma, wouldn't you say? Objection. Alexander stood, withdrawn. Vincent sat down. Ms. Fletcher, you haven't visited your father's home in over 3 months, have you? She blinked. We're estranged because of the lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed 7 weeks ago. What about the 3 months before that, silence? No further questions at this time. The deposition ended. Allison stood immediately, Easton at her side. You did so well, honey, he murmured. That was brutal. She buried her face in his shoulder, sobbing. He twisted everything I said, made me sound like a liar. I watched from across the room, my heart fragmenting. That performance would play well to a jury. Vincent guided me out into the hallway. She was so good, I said. She almost convinced me, and I know it's all lies. Exactly. That's the problem. Her story is too perfect, too rehearsed. Real people stumble, contradict themselves. She had an answer for everything delivered with perfect emotional timing. That's not genuine trauma. That's preparation. What now? What now? It's your turn. Your deposition is in 3 days. Alexander will try to paint you as cold, miserly, neglectful. You need to stay calm, stick to facts. I nodded, but inside I was terrified. How do you defend yourself against someone who knows every mistake you've made, who used to be your little girl? 3 days after Allison's performance, the same sterile conference room waited for me. The same court reporter adjusted her equipment, but everything felt different. This time I was the one under oath. This time Alexander Hunt would try to dismantle not just my case, but me. Vincent and I reviewed my testimony one last time over lukewarm coffee. He reminded me, stay calm, answer only what's asked, don't defend or explain unless necessary. Above all, tell the truth. I nodded, but my hands shook. How do you defend yourself against someone who knows every one of your weaknesses, who once called you Dad? The door opened. Alexander Hunt strode in, first confident grin sharp. Behind him came Allison and Easton. My daughter wore a pale blue dress, the same costume from her deposition. She didn't meet my eyes. Easton looked uncomfortable but took the seat beside her. The court reporter swore me in. Unlike Allison, I meant it. Hunt wasted no time. He began with my finances, his tone sharp and accusatory. How much did I have in retirement savings? Approximately $2.8 million, I answered. How much was my house worth? $2 million mortgage paid off. So I had assets totaling around $4 million, correct? He paused, letting the number hang in the air like an accusation. Then why, he asked, leaning forward, had I refused my only daughter a mere $500,000 when she desperately needed support? Vincent objected. Argumentative assumes facts, not in evidence. The objection was noted, but Hunt didn't care. He rephrased, Allison had asked me for $500,000 and I had refused. Yes. He pressed, didn't I claim to love my daughter? I felt my throat tighten. I did love her, I said quietly. I still do. Then why, Hunt demanded, would a man with 4 million refuse to help his own child? Vincent objected again, speculation harassment. But Hunt had planted the seed. He shifted tactics. Over the years, he said I had given Allison $375,000. For college, her wedding, a car, emergencies. But this time when she asked for help to heal from caregiving stress, I had said no. Wasn't that cold? Wasn't that selfish? Vincent stood. Compound, argumentative. But Hunt moved on. Had I considered Allison's feelings that night? Had I thought about what she'd sacrificed after Caroline died? I answered carefully. I had considered everything. I had weighed my responsibility to my retirement, to my future needs, to my grandchildren. 500,000 represented nearly 20% of my savings. I couldn't justify it for a 3-month solo cruise, no matter how Allison framed it as therapy. Hunt pounced. So I valued money more than my daughter's mental health. No, I said, my voice firmer. I valued responsibility. I valued honesty. I had offered to help her find other ways: therapy, a shorter vacation, family counseling. She had refused. She wanted the money, and only the money. Hunt leaned back, calculating. He asked about Caroline. My wife had died in 2010, 13 years ago. During her illness, had Allison been there? Yes, I said. She had been a tremendous support. So Allison had cared for her dying mother, Hunt said, and then stayed to care for me, a grieving widower. Didn't I owe her something for that? Vincent objected, leading relevance. But Hunt rephrased. Did I believe Allison had made sacrifices? I paused. Yes, I said. She had. But I had also supported her financially for over a decade. Sacrifice wasn't one-sided. Hunt's expression hardened. He held up the promise letter. This bore my signature, promising Allison 500,000. I shook my head. I never wrote that letter, I said. I never signed it. Hunt's eyebrows rose. So I was calling my daughter a liar. No, I said. I was stating a fact. That signature was not mine, Vincent interjected, reminding the room that a forensic handwriting expert had concluded it was forged. Hunt waved dismissively. We'd address that in court, he said. He turned back to me. At the dinner, had I said anything that might have hurt Allison's feelings, I had been clear, I said. I had told her I couldn't give her $500,000. I had explained my reasons calmly and respectfully. And how had Allison reacted? I hesitated. This was the moment I dreaded. She became upset, I said. She said things she didn't mean. What things specifically? I glanced at Allison. Her face was a mask. She said that I was selfish, I replied. That I didn't love anyone. That my existence was a prison sentence. That she understood why Caroline had died young, because living with me had suffocated her. The room went silent. Hunt asked almost gently, did I believe my daughter meant those words? I felt tears prick my eyes. No, I said. I didn't believe she meant them. I believed she was angry and lashing out. But they hurt more than I can say. Hunt nodded as if sympathetic. But then he asked if Allison had been so cruel, why hadn't I called the police? Why hadn't I filed a restraining order? Why had I waited until she sued me to fight back? I felt the trap close. Because she's my daughter, I said quietly. Because I loved her. Because I hoped we could work it out. Hunt let the silence stretch. Then he said, or perhaps because I knew I was in the wrong. Perhaps I knew I had broken a promise and was trying to cover my tracks. Vincent shot to his feet. Improper, argumentative, without foundation. The objection was sustained, but the damage was done. Hunt had no further questions. Vincent asked a few redirect questions, but the cross-examination had taken its toll. I felt hollowed out, every word a fresh wound. When the court reporter called time, I stood on shaky legs. Allison and Easton left first. She still didn't look at me. Vincent squeezed my shoulder. You did well. You were honest. That's what matters. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt raw, exposed. My phone buzzed. Diane Porter's name flashed on the screen. Howard, she said, her voice urgent. I need you to come to my office now. I found something big. 20 minutes later, I stood in Diane's small office above a dry cleaner on 5th Street. The room smelled like old paper and coffee. Spread across her desk were surveillance photos, dozens of them. I stepped closer, my stomach sinking. The images were grainy but unmistakable. Allison, and a man who wasn't Easton. Diane looked up at me. Howard, she said quietly, your daughter's been lying about a lot more than a promise letter. 2 weeks after the depositions, Diane had been following Allison. People say that when you start digging for evidence, you should brace yourself for what you'll find. But sometimes the hole goes deeper than you ever imagined. The photos spread across Diane's desk proved that my daughter wasn't just lying in court. She was living a lie. Vincent and I returned to Diane's cramped office the morning she called us in. She didn't waste time. I've been surveilling Allison for 2 weeks, she said, gesturing to the photos. She's been meeting someone, frequently. I stepped closer. The first photograph showed Allison and a man at a high-end restaurant, their hands clasped on the table. The second captured them in a parking garage kissing. The third showed them entering a hotel together. I recognized the man immediately. My stomach turned. That's her attorney, I said, my voice hollow. Alexander Hunt. Diane nodded. They've met at least 6 times in the past 2 weeks. Hotels, private restaurants. This isn't a professional relationship, Howard. Vincent leaned over the desk, his jaw clenched. This is a massive conflict of interest. She's sleeping with her own lawyer to ensure he fights harder for her. Diane pulled out a folder. I've mapped the timeline. First meeting 4 months ago, right after she consulted him. Pattern 2 to 3 times per week since. I also obtained text messages through Discovery. She slid printouts across the desk. I picked one up and read aloud, my voice shaking. After this is over, we'll finally be free. Just the 2 of us. Another read. He doesn't understand me the way you do. Vincent exhaled sharply. Does Easton know? Diane shook her head. Based on what I've observed, Nutsun, he's completely in the dark. I felt a wave of nausea. We have to tell him. He deserves to know his wife is cheating on him. Those kids deserve better than this. Vincent turned to me, his expression conflicted. Legally, Howard, we should save this for trial, for maximum impact. If we tell him now, Allison could change tactics, destroy evidence, maybe drop the lawsuit. We need this for court. It will obliterate her credibility. I stared at him. He's living in a lie with 2 small children. You want me to let that continue for 6 more weeks? Vincent placed a hand on my shoulder. I understand. Morally, I get it. But strategically, this is our strongest weapon. If we reveal it now, we lose the element of surprise. In 6 weeks at trial, everyone will see who Allison really is. Easton will find out then, and he'll have the full picture, the affair, the forgery, the fraud. All of it. I struggled with the decision. Every fiber of my being wanted to call Easton. But I also knew Vincent was right. I finally nodded, though the guilt sat heavy. 6 weeks, but after that he knows everything. 1 week later, Diane called another emergency meeting. Her voice had been urgent. I found something that changes everything. Vincent and I arrived within the hour. Diane's laptop displayed a scanned document. I ran a comprehensive background check and found a life insurance policy in Howard's name that shouldn't exist. She turned the screen toward us. I leaned in and read, policy amount $2 million. Insured Howard Fletcher, beneficiary Allison Fletcher. Issue date 10 months ago. My breath caught. I didn't purchase a life insurance policy. I already have one through my old hospital. Diane nodded. I know. This is a second policy. Vincent examined the document. Howard, this has your signature. I looked closer. The signature resembled mine, but the details were wrong. That's not my signature. It's close, but it's not mine. Diane called the insurance company. She put the investigator Robert Anderson on speaker. Mr. Fletcher. Robert said, the signature doesn't match samples from your original policy. Can you confirm you did not authorize this policy? I did not, I said firmly. I've never seen this document before today. Who's been paying the premiums? Vincent asked. Robert clicked through files. Automatic withdrawal from an account ending in 7823. I shook my head. That's not my account. Diane was already checking her records. She looked up, her face pale. That account belongs to Allison Fletcher. The room fell silent. I spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. She bought a life insurance policy on me, without my knowledge, made herself the beneficiary. And she's been paying the premiums. Vincent's expression was grim. This is insurance fraud, Howard. A felony. After the call ended, I sat down heavily. Vincent, what are you thinking? Vincent met my eyes, his expression careful. I'm thinking that if the lawsuit doesn't succeed, she still has another option. My throat tightened. What option? Howard, if you were to pass away, she would receive $2 million. The blood drained from my face. You think she would? No. She's my daughter. Diane leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. Mr. Fletcher, she forged documents. She's having an affair with her lawyer. She took out an unauthorized insurance policy on you. I've been doing this for 20 years. This pattern deeply concerns me. Vincent held up a hand. I'm not saying she will do anything, but we need to make sure you're safe. Maybe you shouldn't be alone right now. I stared at them both. You're saying my daughter might harm me for money. Diane didn't look away. I'm saying we need to be cautious. People do desperate things when they're cornered. And right now, Allison is cornered. Vincent added. We're 6 weeks out from trial. Once everything comes to light, the risk increases. She'll know we have the evidence. She'll know she's going to lose. That's when people become unpredictable. I stood, my legs unsteady. I need air. Vincent walked me to the door. Howard, I'm serious. Don't be alone. Stay with Walter if you need to. And if anything feels off, you call me immediately. For the first time in my life, I was afraid. Not of losing money or a lawsuit. I was afraid of losing my life. And the person I feared most was the little girl I had once held in my arms. That realization cut deeper than any lie she'd ever told. 6 weeks after we uncovered the insurance fraud, we stood in the halls of justice. The courtroom smelled of old wood and polished brass. I had saved hundreds of lives in the operating room over 40 years. But sitting at that defendant's table, I felt like I was the one on the operating table. Exposed. Vulnerable. Fighting for my life. Vincent and I arrived at County Superior Court early that morning. Courtroom 3B was imposing high ceilings, wood-paneled walls, the county seal hanging behind the judge's bench. The gallery filled with faces from Allison's social media campaign, about 20 of them glancing my way with open hostility. A few reporters took seats in the back row. Walter slipped in quietly and sat behind me, offering a reassuring nod. At 9 o'clock, sharp Allison entered, flanked by Alexander Hunt. She wore a navy blue suit, minimal makeup, hair pulled back. She looked fragile, vulnerable, nothing like the woman who had orchestrated a fraud scheme. Easton followed behind, his jaw, tight eyes, red-rimmed. Allison glanced at me and dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Even now, a part of me wanted to comfort her. The bailiff stood. All rise. The Honorable Judge Helen Crawford presiding. Judge Crawford entered a woman in her early 60s with silver hair, sharp eyes, and an expression that promised no nonsense. Case number 23-4219, Fletcher versus Fletcher. Counsel, are you ready? Ready, Your Honor, both lawyers said. Mr. Hunt, your opening statement. Alexander rose and strode to the center. Your Honor, this case is about a broken promise, a betrayed daughter, a father who chose wealth over love. He paused. Howard Fletcher is a wealthy man, $4 million in assets. But wealth means nothing if it's hoarded while family suffers. He gestured toward Allison. Allison Fletcher spent 10 years caring for her grieving father. At 20, she focused on him. She stayed. She sacrificed. He pointed at me. And he promised her, I will always take care of you. He said it. He wrote it. The promise letter appeared on the courtroom screen. For years, he supported her financially. He established a pattern. Then when she asked for help one more time, he said no. Cold, final. My client asks for $1 million. That is justice. Judge Crawford turned to Vincent. Mr. Brennan, your opening. Vincent stood slowly. Your Honor, opposing counsel has told a compelling story. The problem, it's fiction. He let the silence stretch. This case is not about a devoted daughter. It's about manipulation, fraud, and a woman who views her father as an income source. He stepped closer to the bench. The evidence will show, first, the documents are forgeries. We have forensic proof. Second, Ms. Fletcher was not a full-time caregiver. She visited occasionally. Third, the $500,000 was not for healing. It was for a luxury cruise. Fourth, Mr. Fletcher gave $375,000 over the years voluntarily. Finally, Mrs. Fletcher planned this lawsuit for months. She forged documents, staged photographs, built a public narrative. He turned toward the gallery, then back to the judge. This is not a family dispute. This is a calculated scheme. When this trial concludes, you will see that the real victim is Howard Fletcher. Judge Crawford looked at Alexander. Call your first witness. The plaintiff calls Allison Fletcher. Allison walked to the witness stand. The clerk swore her in. She sat, adjusted the microphone, folded her hands. She looked nervous. Rehearsed, but effective. Alexander began. Miss Fletcher, can you tell the court about your relationship with your mother? Allison's voice trembled. My mother was everything to me. When she got sick, our family fell apart. She passed when I was only 20. Tears welled. My father collapsed. He couldn't function. I moved back home. I took care of him. I put my life on hold because he needed me. It was a lie. She'd moved home for 3 months, not years. But the way she told it, you'd think she'd sacrificed a decade. Alexander projected photographs, holidays, birthdays, carefully curated. Can you describe how your father responded? He said I was his rock. He told me, you take care of me, I'll take care of you. I believed him. The promise letter appeared again. He wrote this 2 years ago. He wanted me to know I'd always be supported. Alexander walked her through the cruise request. Can you tell the court what happened? Allison's composure cracked. I hit a breaking point. 2 young kids, a stressful job caring for my father. I started having panic attacks. I found a therapeutic cruise program. 3 months of wellness care. It was expensive, but I thought my father would help. He'd always helped before. She looked directly at me. I showed him the brochure. He looked at me like I'd asked for his arm. He said no, just no. He called me selfish. Then he said my mother would be ashamed of who I'd become. It was a complete reversal. I had never said that. She had. But the way she delivered it, voice-choked, eyes pleading, it sounded true. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Easton leaned forward, anguish written across his face. I shook my head slightly, but no one was looking at me. "What did you do?" Alexander asked gently. I tried to give him space. Weeks went by. Nothing. So I consulted a lawyer. I had to protect myself. She looked at Judge Crawford. I never wanted this. I just wanted my father to keep his promise. "Further questions?" Alexander said. Vincent stood. "Ms. Fletcher, you claim you were a full-time caregiver, but you worked full-time and had 2 small children. How did you manage that?" Allison hesitated. "It was difficult, but I made it work." "We'll examine your schedule more closely later. Your Honor, we reserve the right to recall this witness." "No," Judge Crawford said. Alexander called Easton briefly. He spoke haltingly, clearly uncomfortable, but he backed his wife. He believed her. That cut deeper than anything else. At 4:30, Judge Crawford adjourned. "We'll reconvene tomorrow at 9. Allison was immediately surrounded. Easton hugged her supporters crowded around. "You were so brave." Vincent and I gathered our files. Outside, he stopped. "She's very good." Too good," I said quietly. "She believes her own lies now. Tomorrow we present our case. We'll start dismantling this." But I couldn't rest that night. I lay awake replaying Allison's testimony. The tears, the trembling voice, the carefully constructed narrative. If I didn't know what I knew, I might have believed her too. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow Vincent would begin tearing down the facade. But tonight I found myself asking, would the judge believe her? Or would she see through the performance to the cold, calculated fraud underneath? I didn't know, and that terrified me. Before I reveal what happened in that courtroom on day 2, the evidence that completely shattered Allison's facade, I need to know you're still with me. On a scale of 1 to 10, how curious are you about what Vincent is about to present? Drop your number in the comments below. Also, please note, the upcoming portion contains fictionalized elements for storytelling purposes. If you'd prefer not to continue, feel free to pause here and explore other content. Trial Day 2. I woke at 4 in the morning, heart pounding. Today everything would come out, the whole truth. And when it did, I wasn't sure who would be left standing. Vincent picked me up at 7. We reviewed the plan over coffee. "Stay calm," he said. "No matter what Alexander throws at you, we have the evidence. Today we dismantle her story piece by piece. At 9 o'clock, we took our seats. The gallery filled fewer of Allison's supporters this time. Allison entered with Alexander wearing gray today. Easton followed, looking exhausted. Judge Crawford entered. "All rise. Mr. Fletcher, please take the stand." I walked to the witness box and was sworn in. Vincent approached. "Mr. Fletcher, tell the court about your relationship with Allison growing up." So I loved her from the moment she was born. My wife and I gave her everything. Not just material things, but time, attention, love. She was our world. Vincent projected family photographs. After Caroline passed away, did things change? I fell apart. Allison helped at first, moved home for a few months, but then she went back to college, which was right. She had her own life. Did you support her financially? Yes, voluntarily. College tuition $150,000. Her wedding $100,000. A car $45,000. Other needs $80,000. Total $375,000. Did you promise to support her unconditionally forever? No. I said I would help when she needed it. I never said I'd fund her entire life indefinitely. Vincent showed a timeline. Can you tell the court about the dinner last year? She asked for $500,000 for a luxury cruise. 3 months long. Alone, leaving her husband and children. I said I couldn't give that much for something that seemed unwise. It wasn't about the money. It was about principle. What happened after you said no? I looked down. She said terrible things, that her mother must have suffocated living with me, that I was cold, stingy, that I loved money more than people. Alexander cross-examined aggressively, but I held steady. At 11:30, Judge Crawford called a break. When we reconvened at 1:30, Vincent stood. The defense calls Dr. Patricia Stone, forensic document examiner. Dr. Stone appeared via video conference. Vincent walked her through her credentials. Dr. Stone, did you examine the promise letter? I did. The letter is a forgery. It was created by tracing an authentic signature and digitally manipulating the document. The emails were backdated. The photographs show clear evidence of digital manipulation. In your expert opinion, are these documents authentic? No, they are deliberate fabrications. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Allison stared straight ahead, her face pale. Vincent didn't pause. The defense calls Diane Porter, private investigator. Diane took the stand. Ms. Porter, what did you discover? Ms. Fletcher is engaged in a romantic relationship with her attorney, Alexander Hunt. The courtroom exploded. Judge Crawford's gavel came down hard. Order! Easton stood up, his face white. What? Vincent pressed a button. Images filled the screen, Allison and Alexander kissing, holding hands, entering a hotel together. Timestamps spanning 3 months. Easton stared at the screen, tears streaming down his cheeks. No. Allison, no. Allison stood. Easton, please. Skirt down him and Fletcher! Judge Crawford's voice cut like a whip. Easton ran from the courtroom. The door slammed behind him. Diane continued. Based on surveillance and phone records, the relationship began 4 months ago, shortly after Mrs. Fletcher first consulted Mr. Hunt. Vincent called Dr. Sarah Bennett, a toxicologist. Dr. Bennett, did you examine blood samples from Howard Fletcher? Yes. 3 samples over 2 months showed elevated levels of zolpidem, a prescription sleep medication. Levels high enough to cause confusion, drowsiness, memory impairment. Does Mr. Fletcher have a prescription for zolpidem? No. What is your conclusion? Someone was administering zolpidem to Mr. Fletcher without his knowledge. The tea, I said aloud. She always made me tea. The gallery gasped. The defense calls Robert Anderson, insurance investigator. Robert took the stand. Mr. Anderson, did you investigate a life insurance policy in Howard Fletcher's name? Yes. A $2 million policy issued 10 months ago. Who is the beneficiary? Allison Fletcher. Did Howard Fletcher apply for this policy? No, the signature is forged. Who has been paying the premiums? Allison Fletcher. What would trigger the payout under Cortentiki? The passing of the insured Howard Fletcher. Horrified silence filled the room. Vincent displayed text messages between Allison and Alexander. He read them aloud. When I get the money, I'll be free. We can start over, just you and me. Another, if the lawsuit doesn't work, there are other ways to handle this. The gallery reacted with horror. Alexander stood, his face ashen. Your Honor, I move to withdraw as counsel. I've been manipulated. She told me she loved me. I thought I was helping someone I cared about. I didn't know about the forged documents, the insurance policy. I believed her. He looked at Allison. You used me. I want to testify. For the defense. Judge Crawford paused, considering. This is highly irregular. But proceed. Alexander was sworn in. When did Ms. Fletcher contact you? 4 months ago. She was crying. Said her father controlled her financially. Showed me documents. She seemed traumatized. His voice was thick with regret. She expressed romantic interest. We started seeing each other. She said after this case she'd leave Easton. We'd have a future. Did you verify the documents? No. I trusted her. She made me believe I was rescuing her. Now I see I was just a tool. Alexander left the stand and walked out. He didn't look back. Judge Crawford looked at Allison. Ms. Fletcher, do you wish to make a statement? Allison stood. The victim image vanished entirely. Her face was cold, angry. You want the truth? Fine. My father is a selfish man who hoarded his wealth. I gave him years of my life, and he threw me away over money. Yes, I created those documents. Because he promised, and then broke his word. Alexander was useful. Easton is boring. My children are burdens. She said it without flinching. And yes, I bought that insurance policy. If he refused me in life, at least I'd get something when he passed. I felt tears running down my face. Allison, she looked at me, her eyes blazing. You did this, Dad. You made me this way. You should have just said yes. Judge Crawford's face had gone pale. Ms. Fletcher, that's enough. Allison laughed bitterly. Why, it's over anyway. Judge Crawford's voice was ice. 15-minute recess. Counsel in my chambers. In chambers, Vincent explained. Ms. Fletcher has confessed to fraud, forgery, manipulation. These admissions trigger criminal investigations. Judge Crawford nodded grimly. I'll be referring this matter to the district attorney. Insurance fraud, forgery, conspiracy. When we returned, I realized something. I wasn't just winning a lawsuit. I was losing my daughter to prison. Verdicts are supposed to bring closure. But as Judge Crawford returned to the bench, I realized some endings don't heal wounds. They just show you how deep they run. 30 minutes after our conversation in her chambers, we returned to the courtroom. The gallery had thinned. Most of Allison's supporters had left, their loyalty evaporating with the evidence. Easton had come back. He sat several rows behind Allison, now eyes red and swollen, staring at the floor. He couldn't look at her. I couldn't blame him. The bailiff stood. All rise. We rose as Judge Crawford entered, her expression grave. She took her seat. Be seated. The room held its breath. Judge Crawford folded her hands on the bench and looked directly at Allison. In 20 years on this bench, I have never seen a case like this one. Her voice was measured, but I heard the steel beneath it. Ms. Fletcher, you came before this court claiming to be a victim. You presented documents, testimony, tears. You demanded $1 million. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. The evidence has shown that nearly every claim you made was a fabrication. The promise letter forged, the emails backdated and manipulated, the photographs digitally altered. Your caregiving claims grossly exaggerated. You conducted an affair with your own attorney while married with 2 small children. You administered sleep medication to your father without his knowledge or consent. And you fraudulently obtained a $2 million life insurance policy on him, naming yourself as beneficiary. Allison sat motionless, her face blank. Judge Crawford continued. Then, in this very courtroom, you confessed. You admitted to the forgery. You admitted to using Mr. Hunt. You admitted to purchasing that insurance policy. You did so with full knowledge that this court and everyone present would hear you. The judge's gaze swept the courtroom. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Ms. Fletcher, you will never be permitted to bring these claims again. Furthermore, you are ordered to pay Mr. Fletcher's legal fees in full, $75,000. Payment is due within 30 days. I heard Allison's sharp intake of breath, but she said nothing. Judge Crawford wasn't finished. Additionally, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. The charges I recommend include insurance fraud, a felony; forgery of legal documents, a felony; identity theft, a felony; and elder endangerment through administration of controlled substances without consent. She looked at Allison. All evidence, testimony, and recordings from this proceeding will be provided to the district attorney. Miss Fletcher, do you understand? Allison's voice was barely audible. Yes. Judge Crawford nodded to the bailiff. Officer, please take Ms. Fletcher into custody pending arraignment on the criminal charges. The bailiff approached. Ms. Fletcher, stand up. Allison stood slowly, her movements mechanical. The bailiff pulled her hands behind her back and fastened handcuffs around her wrists. The metallic click echoed in the silent courtroom. As she was led toward the side door, Allison turned her head and looked back at me. Our eyes met. I searched her face for something: remorse, fear, even anger, but I couldn't read what I saw there. Her expression was unreadable, closed off. Then she was gone. The door closing behind her with a soft thud. Judge Crawford struck her gavel once. This court is adjourned. I sat frozen, unable to move. Vincent touched my shoulder. Howard, you won. I turned to him, my voice hollow. Did I just watched my daughter get arrested. Vincent's face softened. She brought this on herself. You didn't do this to her. She did. I wanted to believe that, but it didn't make the weight in my chest any lighter. Walter approached, his expression pained. Howard, I'm so sorry. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Easton standing a few feet away, hesitant. Mr. Fletcher. His voice cracked. Easton. I said quietly. I'm so sorry you had to learn everything this way. Easton's face crumpled. I should have seen it. I wanted to believe her so badly. Tears streamed down his face. What am I supposed to tell Justin and Chloe? They're 4 and 2. How do I explain that their mother? He couldn't finish. I stood and opened my arms. Easton stepped forward and collapsed against me, sobbing. I held him, this man I barely knew who had married my daughter and fathered my grandchildren. Both of us wept for different reasons, but with the same grief. We'll figure it out together, I said quietly. Those kids need you, and they need stability. I'll help however I can. Easton pulled back, wiping his eyes. You don't owe me anything. After everything, you're the father of my grandchildren, I said firmly. And you're a victim in this too. We'll get through it. Easton nodded, unable to speak. Walter helped him gather his things. Vincent and I made our way toward the exit. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Vincent shielded me from the cameras pushing through the crowd. No comment. Mr. Fletcher has no comment at this time. We reached his car and got in. He drove in silence for several minutes before I finally spoke. What happens next? Vincent glanced at me. Criminal trial, probably 6 months from now. If she's convicted, she could face 10 to 15 years in prison. And Easton, the kids, family court, custody, divorce. That's a separate process. It'll take time. I looked out the window at the city passing by. He'll need help. Legal help. Financial help. Howard, you don't owe anyone. He's the father of my grandchildren, I repeated. And he's a victim. I'm not going to abandon him. Vincent nodded slowly. All right. We'll figure it out. That night, I couldn't face my empty house. I checked into a hotel downtown, a clean, anonymous room where no memories lived. Room 412. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. An automated message. You have a collect call from inmate Allison Fletcher at County Jail. Press 1 to accept. Press 2 to decline. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes. My thumb hovered over the accept button. Part of me wanted to hear her voice. Wanted to ask why. Wanted to know if there was any part of the daughter I'd loved still inside the woman who'd tried to destroy me. But I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I pressed 2. Declined. The line went dead. I set the phone down and lay back on the bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. I had won. The court had vindicated me. Allison would face justice, but as I lay there in that anonymous hotel room, I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Somewhere across the city, my daughter sat in a jail cell, and I couldn't bring myself to answer her call. Maybe tomorrow, or maybe never. 6 months. That's how long it took the legal system to process what I'd known in my heart. My daughter wasn't just lost. She was dangerous. And dangerous people belong behind bars, even when they carry your blood. The months between the civil verdict and the criminal trial were strange. Allison remained in custody, bail denied due to flight risk and the severity of charges. Easton filed for divorce immediately. The paperwork arrived at my house by accident. I called him. He cried. "I can't do this anymore," he said. "I can't let the kids grow up thinking this is normal." The custody battle began quietly. Easton's lawyer reached out. Would I be willing to testify about Allison's behavior? Would I support his petition for sole custody? I said yes. I also offered to help with legal fees. "Those kids are my grandchildren," I told him. "And you're a good father. Let me help." Justin was 4 now, Chloe 2. When Easton brought them to visit, Justin asked, "Where's Mommy, Grandpa?" I knelt down and looked into his eyes. "Mommy made some mistakes," I said carefully. "She's learning how to do better. But you're safe. Daddy and I will take care of you." He nodded, not understanding, and ran off to play. I watched them and felt something shift. These kids needed stability, love. They needed to know family didn't mean fear. Social media turned on Allison almost overnight. Her accounts were suspended after the verdict. Former followers posted angry messages. I believed her. She manipulated all of us. Suddenly, I was the father who said no. Strangers messaged me, "You're a hero." I didn't feel like a hero. I felt tired. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Ellen Moore. Twice a week, I sat in her office and talked about guilt, grief, and boundaries. The nightmares started around month 3. I'd dream Allison was standing at my door, smiling, holding a cup of tea. I'd wake up sweating. Dr. Moore said it was normal. Trauma takes time. Walter came by every week with dinner. "You're not alone," he'd say. The criminal trial began in early January. A different courtroom, a different judge, Thomas Morrison, older, stern, with no patience for theatrics. The charges were read: insurance fraud, forgery of documents, identity theft, elder endangerment through administration of controlled substances. All felonies. The trial lasted 5 days. Allison sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, her face blank. No tears this time. No victim performance. Her public defender argued, desperate daughter driven to extremes. The prosecution was relentless. They showed the forged documents, the insurance policy, the surveillance photos, the toxicology reports. They called Diane Porter, Dr. Stone, Dr. Bennett, Robert Anderson. Each testified again, this time for a criminal jury. I testified briefly on day 3. The prosecutor asked about the drugging. "Did you know Ms. Fletcher was giving you Zolpidem?" "No," I said. I trusted her. She made me tea. I thought she was being kind. "How did you feel when you learned the truth?" I paused. Betrayed and afraid. If she could do that, what else might she have done? The defense attorney objected, sustained. But the jury had heard it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When the bailiff called us back, my heart pounded. We filed into the courtroom. Allison stood as the jury entered. The foreperson read the verdict. On the charge of insurance fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of forgery, guilty. On the charge of identity theft, guilty. On the charge of elder endangerment, guilty. Allison didn't flinch. She stood perfectly still, staring straight ahead. Easton exhaled beside me. "It's over," he said quietly. But it wasn't. Not yet. 2 weeks later, we returned for sentencing. I had prepared a victim impact statement. Dr. Moore helped me write it. When Judge Morrison called my name, I walked to the podium. My hands shook. I unfolded the paper and read, "Your Honor, Allison is my daughter. I loved her from the moment she was born. I gave her everything I could, not just money, but time, attention, love. What she did wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. It lasted months." I looked up briefly. Allison watched me, her face unreadable. She forged documents. She drugged me to make me appear incapacitated. She took out a life insurance policy on me and spoke of other ways to handle things if the lawsuit failed. I have to live with the knowledge that my daughter might have harmed me for money. My voice broke. But I also ask myself, where did I go wrong? Did I give too much? Not enough. I took a breath. I don't want revenge, Your Honor. I want safety. I want my grandchildren to be safe. And I want Allison to get help. But above all, I want other parents to know saying no is not cruelty. Sometimes it's the most loving thing you can do. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison nodded. "Ms. Fletcher, do you wish to make a statement?" Allison stood. "I was backed into a corner," she said flatly. No apology, no remorse. Judge Morrison's expression hardened. "This is not the time for excuses, Ms. Fletcher." He looked down at his notes. "Your crimes were serious and systematic. You showed no remorse during the civil trial. You confessed in open court, yet you continue to blame everyone but yourself. The court finds you unrepentant and a danger to others." He paused. "On the charge of insurance fraud, I sentence you to 5 years in state prison. On forgery and identity theft, 2 years each to be served concurrently. On elder endangerment, 3 years to be served consecutively. Total 8 years in state prison. You will be eligible for parole after 5 years. In addition, you are ordered to pay restitution $100,000 in legal fees and damages." He struck his gavel. Allison was led away. She didn't look back. Easton and I walked out together. Reporters swarmed. "Mr. Fletcher, are you satisfied with the sentence?" I stopped and faced the cameras. "I'm not satisfied. I'm sad. My daughter is going to prison, but I'm safe. My grandchildren are safe. And maybe in those years, Allison will find the help she needs." I looked directly into the lens. To other parents, love fiercely. But don't confuse love with enabling. Sometimes the kindest word you can say is no. That weekend, the news broke Alexander Hunt disbarred permanently. Conflict of interest, use of fraudulent evidence, professional misconduct. He was sentenced to 2 years probation and banned from practicing law. His career was over. That night, my phone rang. "Easton. Dad." He said he'd started calling me that after the custody hearing. "The divorce is final. I got sole custody." Relief and pain mingled in his voice. "Now what?" I asked. "Now we learn how to be a family, the 4 of us, if you're willing." I was willing. But first I had to grieve the daughter I'd lost. Grief is a strange thing. You can mourn someone who is still alive. I grieve for my daughter while learning to love my grandchildren. Life doesn't wait for your heart to catch up with its rhythm. The family court hearing felt like watching a play where I already knew the ending. Judge Patricia Wells read through the case file with methodical precision. Easton sat beside me, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Across the room, a video screen flickered to life. Allison appeared from the state correctional facility in an orange jumpsuit, her face thinner now harder. Mrs. Fletcher. Judge Wells began, "You understand that your criminal convictions carry consequences beyond incarceration." Allison's response was flat, devoid of theatrical emotion. "Yes, Your Honor. Given your convictions for insurance fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder endangerment, this court finds that you pose a significant risk to the welfare of your minor children. Your parental rights are hereby terminated pending the completion of your sentence and a comprehensive psychological evaluation." The gavel came down with a sound that felt final. Beside me, Easton exhaled. "It's over," he whispered. 2 weeks later, I stood outside Easton's apartment with takeout containers. Inside, toys littered every surface. Chloe was crying. Justin sat on the couch watching cartoons. Easton looked like he hadn't slept in days. "I can't do this," he said. "Work needs me full-time. The kids need me full-time. I'm failing at both." I set the food down. "You're not failing. You're overwhelmed. There's a difference." That night, after the kids were asleep, we talked. I told him about my house, the 4 bedrooms that had sat empty since Caroline died. I told him about my retirement, about the time I suddenly had too much of. "What are you suggesting?" Easton asked. "A partnership. The kids stay with me during the week. You come by every evening after work, have dinner with us, help with bedtime. Weekends are yours. We raise them together, not as a handoff, but as a family." He was quiet for a long time. "I don't want them to think I abandoned them too. They won't, because you'll be there. Every single day." The move happened over a long weekend. I converted the guest room into Justin's space, painting the walls blue. Chloe got the room that had been Caroline's sewing space, now decorated with clouds and stars. Routines became our salvation. Morning wake-up at 7, breakfast by 7:30. School drop-off at 8:15. Easton came by every evening at 5:30 without fail. We read bedtime stories, refereed sibling arguments, celebrated small victories. 3 months in, Justin found an old photo album. Pictures of Caroline younger and smiling before the cancer. "Who's that?" he asked. "That's your Grandma Caroline. She died before you were born." He studied the photo. "She looks nice." She was. Very nice. "Your mom looks like her, actually. Same eyes. Does Mom have Grandma's nice inside her?" I think so. Somewhere. Maybe it got buried under everything else, but yes, I think it's there. I pulled him onto my lap. "Your mom is complicated, Justin. Not all bad, not all good. Just complicated." "Do you still love her?" I had to think about that. "I love who she used to be. I'm still learning how to feel about who she became." I kissed the top of his head. "But I love you. And Chloe. And your dad. That's the important part." The letter arrived on a Wednesday, delivered in a stack of mail. I recognized the institutional envelope immediately. My name was written in Allison's handwriting, but it looked different. Shakier, less certain. I stood in the kitchen for a long time holding that envelope. Justin and Chloe were in the living room, building something elaborate with blocks. Their laughter drifted through the house, the sound of healing happening in real time. I opened it. The letter was short. 3 paragraphs written on lined paper. "Dad, I don't expect you to read this, but my therapist here says I need to start being honest, so here it is. I know what I did. All of it. The lies, the lawsuit, the insurance policy, the pills in your tea. I know, and I can't undo any of it. I don't know how to explain what happened to me, how I became this. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I haven't earned that. But I am sorry. I heard Easton got full custody. Good. That's how it should be. They're better off without me right now. Maybe forever. Take care of them. You'll do better than I did. Allison." I read it 3 times. Looking for manipulation, looking for the angle. But all I found was something I hadn't heard from my daughter in years: honesty. Raw, uncomfortable, painful honesty. It didn't excuse anything. It didn't fix anything. But it was a beginning. From the living room, Chloe called out, "Grandpa, come see what we made." I folded the letter carefully and set it on the counter. Tomorrow I would decide what to do with it. But tonight I had grandchildren who needed me. I walked into the living room where Justin and Chloe beamed with pride at their block tower. "It's amazing," I told them, and meant it. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a text from Easton. "Be there in 20. Kids ready for dinner." I looked at my grandchildren at the home we were building together from the wreckage of what came before, and typed back, "We're ready. We're all ready." The block tower stood tall for exactly 30 more seconds before Chloe accidentally knocked it over. Justin's face crumpled with disappointment. But before the tears could start, I was already sitting on the floor beside them. "You know what's great about towers?" I asked. "You can always build them again. Sometimes even better than before." Justin considered this, then nodded slowly. "Can you help this time, Grandpa?" "Yes," I said, reaching for a block. "I can help." And together we began again. They say prison changes people. Sometimes it breaks them. Sometimes it forces them to face mirrors they've been running from all their lives. Allison's letter was 3 pages long. Each page felt like reading about a stranger who happened to share my daughter's name. The envelope had sat on my desk for 3 days before I could bring myself to open it. On the 4th evening, I sat down with the letter opener Caroline had given me for our 20th anniversary. 3 pages of handwritten text spilled out. Allison's handwriting, but different. Messier, less controlled. I read it 3 times before I set it down. The letter was raw, unfiltered. She wrote about her diagnosis, narcissistic personality disorder, about learning to manipulate as a child, about how Mom had seen it, which is why she warned me. She wrote about the yacht not being about wanting it, but about winning. About the insurance policy research that made her a monster. About destroying Easton, calling her children burdens, seeing me as an opponent rather than her father. "I finally see you," she wrote. "Not as an ATM, but as my father. A man who loved me even when I didn't deserve it. You were right about everything, and I was wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking you to tell Justin and Chloe that their mother loves them. I'm sorry, Dad, for everything." I set the letter down with hands that weren't quite steady. My first instinct was suspicion. How many times had she fooled me before? But there was something about this letter that felt different. The messiness of it, the crossed-out words. Manipulators are careful. They edit. This letter felt like it had bled onto the page. I sat in the quiet of my study for a long time. I didn't feel forgiveness. That was too big, too premature, maybe too impossible. But I felt something shift inside me. For 2 years I had carried anger like armor, but armor is heavy. And at 71 years old, I was tired of carrying it. I showed the letter to Walter, Vincent, and Easton. Each offered their perspective. Walter said I wasn't responsible for her redemption, only my own peace. Vincent said it didn't read like manipulation. It read like exhaustion from lying. Easton asked if he should tell the kids. I said not yet. When they're older, when they can understand complexity. 6 months passed. The letter remained on my desk. And life continued. Easton met Lisa at work. She was kind, patient, genuine. Justin and Chloe loved her immediately. "This feels different," Easton told me. "With Allison, I was always performing. With Lisa, I can just be." "That's what healthy love looks like," I said. "It shouldn't feel like a competition you're constantly losing." The questions about Allison came less frequently. "Shaquin, when is Mom coming home?" had become, "Is Mom still away?" The shift in tense felt significant. as if even at their young ages they understood that some absences become permanent through distance. I continued therapy, volunteered at the hospital, watched my grandchildren thrive. My house, which had been silent for so long after Caroline died, now rang with children's laughter. On a Saturday in late spring, we all went to the park. Justin and Chloe raced ahead while the adults claimed a bench. Lisa sat close to Easton, their hands linked comfortably. "Thank you for welcoming me into your family," Lisa said. "You make my son happy," I replied. "That's all I've ever wanted for him." I looked at my grandchildren, at my son and his new partner, at the life we had built from the wreckage. 3 years ago, I had stood in a courtroom listening to accusations designed to destroy me. Now I sat on a park bench watching children play, surrounded by people who loved each other without conditions or calculations. That night, after everyone had gone home, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I took out paper and pen and wrote one line. "I received your letter. I'm not ready to forgive, but I'm glad you're getting help. Take care of yourself. Dad." I addressed the envelope, affixed the stamp, sealed it shut, and then I set it on my desk where I could see it. Not in the mailbox. Not in the outgoing mail. Just there, visible, a possibility rather than a decision. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe never. But the act of considering it felt like progress. Not toward reconciliation, which might never come, but toward something gentler than rage. Toward acknowledgement that people can break, and maybe sometimes begin the long work of reassembly. The letter sat on my desk as I turned off the lights and headed upstairs. In the morning, Justin and Chloe would arrive for breakfast. We would make pancakes, probably spill orange juice, definitely argue about chocolate chips. Life would continue its forward motion, messy and imperfect and beautiful. And that letter would still be there waiting. A small white rectangle holding the weight of possibility. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But not hatred either. Just the acknowledgement that my daughter was still alive, still breathing, still trying. And that somewhere between love and rage, there might be room for the simple, quiet recognition of that fact. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, for the first time in 3 years, the not knowing didn't feel like fear. It felt like peace. People ask me if I have regrets. The honest answer: yes. I regret that it took losing my daughter to save myself. But I don't regret saying no, because saying no saved 3 other people, 2 children, and a man, all of whom deserved better lives. And in saving them, I saved myself. The backyard smelled like charcoal and summer grass. It was one of those perfect July afternoons when the heat wasn't oppressive, and the breeze carried just enough coolness. I stood at the grill, spatula in hand, watching hamburger patties sizzle. "Dad, you're burning the meat," Lisa called out, walking over with a plate. "I'm a surgeon, not a chef," I protested. "That excuse worked better before you'd been doing this for 3 years. She grinned, taking over. "Go sit down." Easton appeared with 2 bottles of beer, pressing one into my hand. "To the man who saved my life, multiple times." He clinked his bottle against mine. "I think we saved each other," I said. "No, Dad. You went first. You showed me what boundaries looked like, what self-respect looked like." Across the yard, Justin was teaching Chloe how to kick a soccer ball. She missed entirely, stumbled, and landed on her bottom in the grass. Instead of crying, she started laughing, and Justin laughed with her. "5 years ago, Howard, you were in the fight of your life. Look at you now," Walter said, settling into the lawn chair beside me. I looked around, at the children playing, at Easton and Lisa working side by side, at Vincent and his wife spreading a blanket, at Walter, who had stood beside me through every awful moment. I never imagined this, I admitted. When I was sitting in that courtroom, I thought I'd lost everything. "You lost one person," Vincent said, "but you gained a family." The meal was loud and chaotic in the best possible way. After we'd eaten, Easton stood up, tapping his beer bottle with a spoon. Lisa and I have some news. We're pregnant. The noise was immediate and joyful. I found myself engulfed in hugs. Another grandchild. I said, my voice thick. I'm a lucky man. Joaquin, Lisa said, her eyes shining. We want you in the delivery room with us, if that's okay. I would be honored. As evening settled, Vincent pulled out his phone. Let's get a picture, all of you. We arranged ourselves in front of the flowering bushes Carolyn had planted 15 years ago. I sat in the middle, Justin on one knee and Chloe on the other. Easton and Lisa stood behind me, their hands on my shoulders. Walter squeezed in at the side. Say family, Vincent called. Family, we shouted in unison. The flash went off, capturing the moment. Later, when I looked at the photo, I saw genuine smiles, real love, hard-won peace. Not artificial perfection, but the beautiful messiness of people who had chosen each other. That evening, after everyone had gone home, I sat in my study. On the bookshelf sat a small wooden box with letters inside. 4 letters from Allison spanning 3 years. 3 responses from me, brief and boundaried. A correspondence that looked nothing like reconciliation, but somehow resembled peace. Her letters tracked a journey I could only partially imagine. Updates on therapy, progress, acknowledgement that she had forfeited the right to her children, gratitude that I had responded at all. My responses had been careful, polite but distant. Each one a boundary clearly drawn and firmly held. No anger, but no invitation either. She was still serving her sentence, eligible for parole in 3 more years. I didn't know what would happen then. What I did know was this: my daughter was alive. She was getting help, and that was enough. I didn't need her redemption to validate my choices. Her journey was hers. Mine was mine. I pulled out my journal and turned to a fresh page, writing what I knew would be the final entry. 5 years ago tonight, I said a word that changed my life: no. I said no to my daughter's demand for $500,000. No to enabling. No to manipulation. That no took everything I thought I had. It took my daughter, my peace, my illusions. But that no also gave me everything. It gave me safety, self-respect. 2 grandchildren who would otherwise have grown up thinking manipulation was love. A son-in-law who learned what healthy family looks like. A life worth living at 72. I closed the journal. My phone buzzed with a text from Easton. Kids wanted to say goodnight. A video call came through. Justin's face filled the screen, Chloe crowding beside him. Grandpa, we had the best time today, Justin announced. I ate too much cake, Chloe added solemnly. My tummy hurts. That's what cake is for. Did you have fun? So much fun. Can we come back tomorrow? How about this weekend? We can go to the park. Yes, they shouted in unison. Good night, my loves. Sweet dreams. The screen went dark. I walked to the window. Outside, stars were beginning to emerge. 7 years ago, Carolyn had stood at this same window. Promise me you'll be happy, she had said. Even after I'm gone. At the time, I had promised, because it was what she needed to hear. I hadn't believed it was possible, but here I was. Happy. Not the uncomplicated happiness of someone who had never suffered, but the hard-won contentment of someone who had faced the worst and come through it. On my desk, 2 photos sat side by side. One from 10 years ago, Caroline, Allison, and me. The other from today, Justin and Chloe on my lap. Easton and Lisa behind me, Walter photobombing at the edge. 2 families, 2 stories. One ending, one beginning. I couldn't save the first family, but I had built the second one from its ruins. My phone buzzed again. Easton. Thanks for everything, Dad. For fighting back. For teaching me I deserved better. For being the father I needed and the grandfather my kids are lucky to have. I love you. I typed back, I love you too, son. See you this weekend. I turned off the desk lamp and walked upstairs, past the bedrooms I'd converted for Justin and Chloe, past the nursery, that would soon hold another grandchild. Before I turned off the light, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The dinner 5 years ago, the lawsuit, the trial, the revelations, the long, slow process of rebuilding. Sometimes the strongest foundations are the ones you build from scratch. Sometimes the family you save isn't the one you thought you had. It's the one you create with love, boundaries, and the courage to say no. I said no, and it saved my life. When I reflect on everything that happened, I see how family betrayal nearly destroyed me, not from strangers, but from my own daughter. This is one of those grandpa stories I never imagined telling, shared now as a warning for anyone who believes love alone solves everything. Don't make my mistakes. Don't wait until legal papers arrive to learn that unconditional love without boundaries is just enabling. I said yes to every demand, thinking it proved devotion. Instead, I taught Allison that manipulation worked. Family betrayal cuts deepest because we give them weapons to hurt us, believing blood provides protection. It doesn't. Here's what I learned. Saying no to someone you love isn't cruelty. It's courage. God gives us wisdom to recognize when generosity becomes destruction, and I ignored that voice too long. Scripture says, love your neighbor as yourself, meaning protect yourself too. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. My advice: set limits early. Don't fund lifestyles you can't afford or values you oppose. Don't let guilt override instincts. When someone repeatedly shows their character, believe them. Grandpa stories like mine exist, so you don't have to live them. To those facing family betrayal, you're not abandoning loved ones by protecting yourself. You're modeling self-respect, showing that love has limits, and sometimes consequences teach what words cannot. If this resonated, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love hearing your perspective on boundary setting. If my story helped, please share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more honest conversations about life's hardest decisions. Thank you for following this journey to the end. I know these difficult grandpa stories about family betrayal aren't easy, but I hope they spare someone my pain. Important note: this story contains fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, please explore other videos better suited to your interests.